Also simulcasting at the moment on ETV. In the aftermath of the violent insurrection in Washington overnight, current and former law enforcement officials say it appears that the U.S. Capitol Police and other agencies failed to anticipate the size and intentions of the mob. Then, in an opinion piece in the New York Times this morning, the newspaper says very bluntly, Donald Trump caused the assault on the Capitol and must be removed as president. Live now to Washington, D.C., correspondent Simon Marks. Good afternoon to you, South African time. One person saying it was the most frightening day in modern American history. As America wakes up this morning, how's the country digesting this?
Well, I think the country is still reeling from the events that took place here in Washington, D.C. yesterday and trying to understand how on earth this could possibly have happened in what is supposed to be the world's most advanced democracy, a country that Ronald Reagan, when he was president, used to describe as a shining city on the hill for other countries all over the world to emulate, reduced yesterday to a situation where a baying mob of conspiracy theorist supporters, whipped up into a frenzy by President Trump and then directed by him to march to Capitol Hill, were able to smash their way into the cradle of American democracy, the U.S. Congressional Building. We now know 4 people died as this mob made its way into the building, removing documents, smashing offices, being resisted at gunpoint by security officers on the other side of the barricaded doors of the House of Representatives chamber from actually making it onto the floor of the House of Representatives, snapping selfies of themselves as they sat in the chair of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, in her own office. President Trump has, within the last couple of hours, finally, belatedly put out a statement saying that he is going to preside over a peaceful transfer of power, but again insisting that he rejects the outcome of America's presidential election, continuing down the same path that he's been on for the last 8 weeks, entirely falsely claiming that that presidential election was rigged by a vast global conspiracy. There are massive questions here this morning, Jeremy. How could this have been allowed to happen at the U.S. Capitol by the Capitol Police? Why were they not prepared to withstand this baying mob as they forced their way into the building? And how can President Trump possibly spend even the next 13 days remaining in office at a time where he now seems utterly isolated? The Vice President of the United States, other cabinet officials yesterday, essentially seizing power here in order to get the National Guard to the Capitol to overcome that mob. President Trump denied access now by Twitter and Facebook to his millions of followers. Resignations en masse last night at the White House and threats to impeach him in Congress over the course of the next few days in a bid not just to remove him from office, but to ensure that he can never run again for public office. It's an absolutely unprecedented situation in the modern era here, a much graver situation than the Watergate crisis that brought Richard Nixon down in 1973, and Donald Trump is the architect of his own destruction.
One of the other questions being asked today is about the soft touch policing, if you make a comparison, for instance, with the Black Lives Matter protests.
Yeah, no question about it. President Trump, as you will remember, when peaceful protesters supporting the Black Lives Matter movement were engaged in a protest in Lafayette Park, directly opposite the White House last summer, President Trump is the man who authorized the use of chemical agents to disperse them so he could then make that disgraceful walk through Lafayette Park to St. John's Church, where he brandished a Bible and insisted that he was a president of law and order, a photo op conceived by his daughter Ivanka Trump, now herself planning a political future here, and his press secretary Kayleigh McEnany, who so far we do not believe has resigned as a result of yesterday's disgrace here. Yesterday it was the same Donald Trump who was reportedly resisting efforts by Vice President Mike Pence and other members of his cabinet to deploy the National Guard to deal with genuinely violent people storming Capitol Hill and posing a threat not just to the destruction of federal property, but a threat to the lives of those police officers, lawmakers and reporters inside the building, plus broader Capitol staff who were simply doing the nation's business. This is a president who many believe here in Washington, and not just Democrats. Many Republicans now believe that he has lost all moral authority, cannot remain in the White House even for the short period of time that exists leading up to Joe Biden's inauguration on January the 20th. And when this is all over, Jeremy, there will be inquiries for Capitol Hill police about how this could have happened, but there will also be a massive existential crisis facing America's Republican Party. Can it survive the Trump era as a unitary political institution here, given the splits that dominate it now between those people who want to continue hewing themselves to Trumpism, whatever that is, and the more sentient Republicans led by Senate Majority Leader, soon-to-be Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who broke with President Trump over the course of the last few weeks. This is as much a crisis for the Republican Party as it is for American democracy.
And that is what America is waking up to this Thursday morning. Simon Marks in Washington, thank you.